If
Sure.
you are not an internet credit card person, you're worried about intelligence spying on you. We could ask Lee all about that in a second. You can send me some real mail. You can write me a letter, send me a picture of your family, send me a particularly winning lottery ticket, your pocket lint. No creepy letters where you cut out the magazine articles and piece together like something that says you're going to murder me, and also nothing edible because I will throw it away for fear it's anthrax. But if you want to send me something cool, P.O. Box 3355, Denellen, Florida 34432. Now, I was going back a few years to find when we started talking about this. I mean, I was looking at something from, around Donald Trump presidency beginning in 2016, but then this was in 2019, which Senate Bill 894 to authorize dedicated domestic terrorism offices within the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, FBI to analyze and monitor domestic terrorist activity and require the federal government to take steps to prevent domestic terrorism. I don't think it made it very far. It looks like it was read twice, referred to committee on the judiciary. But then, we have these bulletins that have come out, and then the media picks it up. Like, you could find many, many articles about the rise of far-right extremism. First off, did this predate Trump's administration, this concern about far-right extremism, or is that something that became front and center after he took office? And what do you think about all this?
I think it became front and center after his rise. But what happened was the establishment was able to co-opt an existing counterterrorism structure and then kind of retool it from things like Al-Qaeda to domestic terrorism as they define it, which essentially, for the most part, is their political enemies. So you go back to 9/11 and think of one of the big criticisms of what happened there, and it's that various agencies weren't talking, they weren't cooperating effectively, they weren't sharing intelligence, and that's how people were able to slip through the cracks. Or that was a story that was prominent not just in the media but in the security services as well. So it prompted this push for a lot of what's called interagency or whole of government cooperation on security matters. So one of the things that happened as a result of that was a massive expansion in what are called these JTTFs, Joint Terrorism Task Forces. Wherever you are in the country, you're probably not far from a JTTF office. And again, the thinking was, well, terrorists, of the sort we imagined 20 years ago, they could be anywhere within the country, right? Little bits of information could be here or there. And so you have these interagency task forces that also work with local law enforcement for the sake of having kind of this broader investigative apparatus throughout the country that might be able to protect the homeland and to be on the lookout for another attack. Well, fast forward 10 or 15 years, I think most of this developed after Trump took over, because of course, my view at least is that the establishment didn't see it coming. They thought he was going to lose. They thought Hillary was a shoo-in. And of course, when that didn't happen, there was a very violent reaction. And that's only expanded. And now it's much, the Department of Justice and others are essentially, I think, weaponizing their government offices to go after political opponents. I mean, if somebody's a dangerous extremist in the country, they want to be able to explain what specifically, what threat they pose. I mean, are they going to blow up buildings in New York? Like, what are they going to do? But I don't think that kind of message is very clearly communicated. I think it's just kind of a weaponization of government against political enemies. So.
Has that been something, though, that has been around for a long time in the United States, and we're just paying attention to it maybe because we're on the side of people who are being targeted? How uncommon is this in U.S. history? Or do we just have a larger security state, judicial state type apparatus now? They could do more damage now with the apparatus they have, but it's always been a problem.
I think both of those are true. I mean, we can go back to the founding days of the country and talk about the Alien and Sedition Act. We can talk about various times throughout our history when personal liberty has been curtailed or suspended. But what we have here is this trend of a tremendous consolidation of power. And at the same time that there's an expansion of government power, So this consolidated authority now is much more powerful than it was in the past, with the addition of the other societal institutions kind of falling in line of this sort of corporate government merger, in a sense that, in the past, perhaps there would have been some kind of substantial media apparatus to question all of this. But now we see less of that, but we also see, banks freely giving over documents on their customers to the government without the customer's knowledge, whereas before that sort of thing would have required a warrant. All the normal deplatforming, debanking, delisting, all of that. I say normal things that have become commonplace in the past couple of years, but it's this consolidation of a federal government that has never been this, of the power of a federal government that has never been this strong, with a lot of the power of other institutions like news media, entertainment media, finance. So it's even if someone had wanted to do this at points in the past, in earlier parts of our history, they wouldn't have been able to do it so thoroughly, successfully, in such a widespread fashion.
Don't forget about my Malbecs, AllisonWinePromo.com. They are the best Malbecs you will ever have. I promise, hands down. They're extremist altitude Malbecs. You're an extremist. Apparently, the extremism is the #1 threat to the United States security state. We're going to ask Lee about that later, too. I don't know if they're talking about my wine or they're talking about something else, but if you want to be an extremist, you don't want to go to federal prison, this is a great way to do it. These are from 6,000 to 9,000 feet, very remote regions, very few pesticides, clean air. The grapes are working extremely hard for you under the sun. That means the taste is also very unique. You can't get them at the grocery store. Why would you want to? You get 50% off the wine and 50% off shipping. And this company has been so good to me since the beginning. They never tell me what I can say, who I can talk to, what questions I can ask, all that good stuff. So wine drinkers out there, please consider getting it a gift for somebody who, I don't know, you are hearing they've leaked documents about you. You send them a text, they leaked it on Facebook. Is it real? Is it a lie? Is it a mission? We don't know. But you guys should just make up, because Lee says it may not even be real. So get a glass of wine, get over it. Lee, I would like your thoughts on what is happening with the climate change policy protests in Germany and elsewhere, articles like this, why Europe's farmers are protesting and the far right is taking note. For some farmers already struggling, paying for more of their pollution is a step too far. Germany is the latest country to see anger boil over. So it intersects a couple of things we've talked about, geopolitical policy and I don't know, angst, I guess I'm going to call it that. But it also is interesting because we're just starting the show about Germany and these leaked documents. And is there a war between Russia and NATO on the horizon? And like, this is also happening. These tractors are like blocking highways. And I'm just curious, where that plays into, because, it seems like tying this far right idea of extremism, we got danger to poo-poo what these farmers are talking about. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about it. I know this is not necessarily your specialty.
I see this as another part of a very long-running story of the expansion of the European Union and its kind of ever-growing detachment from the people that it governs. So lots of things have happened here. There are criticisms of the EU that it expanded too much and too fast, particularly in the 2000s. Some of the kind of Far Eastern members perhaps ought not be there. But one thing that's happened is this idea of an ever closer union. And there's disagreement within the EU as to what that means. Does it mean we have an ever greater economic union, or does it mean we all believe the same things on social issues? But in any case, if we think that our establishment in this country is kind of out of touch or indifferent with the wishes of the locals, I mean, I'd ask you to go to Europe, where I think it's much greater. And that sort of thing is happening here because, we have a very powerful national government that can certainly oppress and repress opinions. But what they have over there is something much more powerful. They have their own national governments that are essentially, for the most part, with only a few exceptions, showing fealty to the EU. And there's a relatively few number of people over there who need to buy into a particular policy like this agricultural policy for it to start to get pushed down at the national level. Now, it's clear we've seen these protests. I don't know much about farming, but I've seen the protest elsewhere in the Netherlands and now here. And it's just another example of the very, very undemocratic nature of the EU, which itself has been growing in power for quite some time. this consolidation of power on the continent, of political power, of economic power, it really doesn't rest in the hands of that many people. So it doesn't matter so much. The leaders who are pushing these policies don't care one bit about these protests, just like they didn't care about the protests in the Netherlands. Now, fortunately, in the Netherlands, we saw a different party get elected after some of that. But we'll see what happens in Germany. All of this is happening at the same time that that the party that actually is claims to want to do something different here is getting surveilled by their own domestic intelligence agency and really getting pushed to the side.
But before you answer, don't forget, everyone, since we're talking about food, if you need a good vitamin D omega supplement, you get seasonal affective disorder, you're not getting enough sun where you live because it's minus 17 degrees and the sun never comes out, you can check out greenpasture.org and go to check out with Allison10 as your promo code. You'll get 10% off your order. I have been taking the fermented cod liver oil, concentrated butter oil blend for over 10 years. It's a great product. I take a tablespoon a day now because I'm trying to re-heal my teeth after neglecting them for a while. I used to have terrible, terrible cavities back like 15 years ago. Every time I went to the dentist, they would tell me I had a new cavity. I started taking this product. I went years, not only without going to the dentist because I just kept forgetting to go, but without cavities. I would go in and they'd be like, wow, your teeth look amazing. And you haven't been to the dentist in 3 years. And I swear this product has done amazing things for that.